in a moment, you are going to be hearing from Darren Verity and briefly Karen Johnson. These two are professors of applied linguistics at Penn State. Karen was my professor when I was first learning about teaching ESL back in 1995. So she's a true senior professor here. They work closely with students at Penn State who are pursuing either a master's degree or a minor in teaching English as a second language. Darren is also one of our volunteers, and we are so grateful to have her on our team. She taught basic English for all in a recent semester, and she kindly agreed to create this training video for all of you. So there are two main things she's going to do. One is explain sociocultural theory, which is a theory that has a lot of implications for language teaching and learning. Part of that is these pedagogical concepts, which I've mentioned a million times now. I also introduced these in our touch base meetings in the fall. So some of you should be pretty familiar with them. But we found these discussions last semester very fruitful, very enjoyable, very helpful, if I might say so myself. So we want to continue this. And so these pedagogical concepts are going to serve as the basis of our Let's Talk teaching session this semester. So I really hope you'll come. Darren's going to go super high speed through them in order to digest them more, process them more deeply, and relate them to your own experience. The Let's Talk teaching sessions are the place to do that. Secondly, Darren is going to give classroom teachers in particular, but also tutors, but especially teachers when you have multiple students to work with, powerful new ideas about how to engineer student participation. Okay, get your students talking. That's what that means. Now remember that Darren and Karen are professors. We are extremely fortunate and grateful to have sort of a master class on how to engineer student participation in language classrooms. At the same time, I want to acknowledge before I start the video that they are going to be throwing a lot at you using a lot of academic jargon that may be a little unfamiliar to you. So don't worry if you feel like you're not getting it all. I didn't get it all the first time. I got it. I could process it much better the second time I watched it. So don't worry about that. If you feel a little lost, no worries. Just take in what you can. You will definitely absorb something of value, something that you can build on. Take in what you can, and know that there are really just two key takeaways that I hope you all will leave here with today. And here they are. Number one, understand the importance of you talking less and your students talking more. I can't emphasize it enough. When we look in classrooms, we want to see students talking, not the teacher lecturing, okay? It's extremely important. Darren's going to help you understand why. And then the next part of it is, okay, how? If in order to get you to talk less and them to talk more, how do you do it? She's going to give you concrete techniques to make this happen. So I chose this photograph to introduce this portion of the training because it's a great representation of what we're trying to get across. So this woman here is one of our students, not a teacher. She is the student. She drew this on the board. So there was some kind of assignment where the students were asked to create a logo and then stand in front of the class and explain that logo. There was more to it, but the point I want to get across is the student is using the language in a creative, new way, not just following what's in the textbook, and embodying that language. She's doing the presenting, she's standing up, she is independently using the language to communicate something new. And that's our goal as language teachers, get them to embody the language and use it independently. And now we will start the videos.
Hello, and welcome to training session 3, Engineering Student Participation in Your Classroom. I'm the moderator today. My name is Darren Verity. I'm a teaching professor in applied linguistics at Penn State. The agenda today is very brief. Glasses so I can read it. I'm going to give a brief introduction to the session, and I'm going to have a 10-minute conversation with Professor Karen Johnson, who is a world famous expert on language teacher education, and she's also going to talk a little bit about the meaning of sociocultural theory, which is the theoretical basis of our teacher education program in the Department of Applied Linguistics at Penn State. We prepare ESL teachers through an MA TESOL degree, and also we work with undergraduate students with a TESOL minor. And then I'll give you 3 sample, what we call engineering practice tasks, and give you a chance to talk about how you interpret my suggestions for how to engineer student participation. The goal today is to give you a sense of some of the choices that you have as an instructor or a tutor to help your English student participate more freely, participate in ways that perhaps have not occurred to you yet, and to participate with a sense of ownership of English. It's really challenging, I think, sometimes to work with adult students because they do bring fully developed language practices and habits, and they are a little bit afraid sometimes of being embarrassed or otherwise inconvenienced when learning this new language as an adult. And if we engineer our classrooms and our interactions a little bit with careful thought and preparation, we can smooth over some of those rough spots. Now, sociocultural theory sounds very intimidating. I promise you it isn't. It's a way of looking at language as not so much as a system of communication, but a system of participation, a way of engaging with the world and engaging, it's important to note, with ourselves and how we act in the world, how we regulate our activity. Think of yourself when you're trying to remember a combination of a lock. You might say the numbers aloud because saying them aloud helps you figure out whether they're correct or not if you haven't used that lock in a long time. It's not that you don't know the words for numbers in English, but saying things aloud in that particular task at that particular moment helps you regulate your activity of trying to get the combination right so you can open the lock. And as a symbolic system, words have open-ended meanings. They have meanings which are multidimensional, very layered, and some of those layers are personal and some of those layers are conventional or social. And by remembering that, we need to help students develop both personal connections to English and conventionalized social connections. In other words, to be working members of the speaking community and not just personal users of English with their own individual meanings. It's an interesting balance that symbolic system is a way of recoding the world, a world that our students come to us fully coded in already. So it's really a good idea to remember that their first language, our students' first language, or first languages, are fully developed, and they are essential for those languages, and those systems are essential for them to learn a new system. Adults like to talk about what they know. They like to practice things with a hands-on approach, but they also like to step back and say, well, what did I learn? Or how is this different from what I thought was true or what my other language says? So it's really important that we allow them to use their first language because that is actually the way their brain is constructed. Their mind is constructed in that first language. So a sociocultural approach to helping teachers develop and helping students develop proficiency in language is to understand the importance of what we call praxis. Praxis is the unity of theoretical knowledge, book knowledge, formal knowledge, structured knowledge, the unity of that kind of knowledge with the experiential, procedural, hands-on knowledge of real-world activity and engagement. And our classes should always involve a combination of those things. They are really hard to separate, especially when it comes to adult learners. We are very used to switching back and forth between being fluent in a procedure, but then stepping back and being able to say why it works or what we know about how it works. And that's praxis, this unity of these two ways of engaging in the world. Now, how did we bring all of these principles of sociocultural theory into our language teacher education? Well, we developed what we call pedagogical concepts. These are quite simple, accessible little nuggets of English language labels, but they represent rather complex and multidimensional understandings of how the human mind and social convention and linguistic structure all interact to allow people to participate in a community, in a spoken interaction, in discourse, and be understood and understand others. So the pedagogical concepts are what we would call in sociocultural theory psychological tools. They're things that take on meaning as they are used. They're not totally accessible on the surface, even though we made them to look as accessible as possible.